What was your first time like?
Just kind of confusing.
It was a pivotal kind of moment in my life.
There's so many answers that we suddenly are craving.
A lot of people just are thinking like, yeah, you just are very promiscuous because you're gay. Like, I'm like, no, there's a whole person behind my sexuality.
For a long time, all you saw was like heteronormative sex. Not everyone has sex this way.
The first time you saw yourself on screen, the first time you had a crush on somebody, the first time you felt like you wanted to have sex with somebody. I mean, there are so many ways to have a first. And so I love this idea of redefining it for you for whatever fits.
I wanna love you IRL. Yeah, let me love you IRL. Yeah, let me get a glimpse of you. Yeah, no filter, just us two. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Sex very much informed how I've gone about learning what I like and what I don't like for myself. My first sexual experience was at 17. It was before I started any medical transition, and I had a certain level of dysphoria with my body. And at the same time, the person I was having sex with respected my body. Like, when I think back on it, it was actually a very intimate, special experience. I felt like my body was being accepted as it was. And I think about wanting that in my sexual experiences.
It was a pivotal kind of moment in my life. It's like I lost my virginity, oh my goodness. I mean, it shouldn't really be that big of a deal, but to me it was.
It depends on the person why they want to have sex, and I think a first time plays a huge part in just acknowledging and letting ourselves feel what we feel.
I'm Finn. I'm 18 years old. I just graduated high school. I'll post photos, but they're worth more than just a post on Instagram. I want the picture's first impression to be bigger than that. I didn't have a health class until senior year came around. It was just kind of weird how we learned so late on in high school, or at least from my experience and my friend's experience. You know, you hit puberty and a lot of people start to get pretty sexually active, and then you start to come across porn. That's where it gets really confusing. You have a whole different idea of what sex is really like. I remember my first time, it was just kind of confusing. I have not had what people call like typical sex. I have not had vaginal sex. My partner and I were like ready to get at it, but then it turns out I didn't have protection and we didn't just go for it without a condom. It was more just like, okay, now step back and realize that there can be consequences considering this is going to be our first time. I don't know, I'm glad we both didn't let like the excitement of potentially having sex for the first time overcome us. I can't really like think of like a perfect first time for myself. I think we just need to both make sure that we both feel comfortable, we're both on the same page. However, we're able to express that.
I think coming of age is very complex because there are just so many things that we are learning about. There's so many answers that we suddenly are craving. And so outside of sex, which is framed as a very scary thing in many ways, because of that lack of education, because of that lack of communication and willingness to see youth as fully aware people, we create these reasons to feel afraid.
We're gonna do that action again. Feet nice and close together.
How do we make space for all of these varied realities that occur within sexual experiences?
Action.
What does it mean to show an authentic sexual experience on TV?
You know, there's a lot of different ways to have sex, and especially in television, there's very diverse stories that are starting to be told, and people are starting to be able to be like, oh, I like see a piece of my experience on screen now, and there's no like one authentic truth.
I sort of feel like my first sex scene on screen had a lot riding on it, and that's actually how we met.
Yeah.
You were an intimacy coordinator for a project. It's my first sex scene I'd ever filmed. There was a lot of responsibility as a trans person, and I don't know if I would have been as comfortable had an intimacy coordinator, especially you, not been there. Like, we talked a lot about, like, very detailed things, where hands go, where body positioning. How would you describe what an intimacy coordinator is? Like, what is their core role on a set?
It's our job to help keep actors safe on set when they're doing scenes of intimacy, so things like nudity, simulated sex, stuff like that, while also helping to realize the director's creative vision. There's several core things that we talk about with every scene. There's the obvious things like if there's gonna be any kind of kissing, what kind of kissing, where are hands going, what body parts are okay to touch, what body parts are not okay to touch.
I mean, we had an experience, you were there, where someone's arm and hand moved somewhere they shouldn't. You know, even though we had talked about it beforehand, it just happened in the heat of the moment. And it can be jarring. It was really alarming. I was like, I don't know if I like this. But I also felt like I was able to say that to you, you know? And that, again, it goes back to having somebody who has that awareness of physical touch, understanding what you feel comfortable with and understanding what they feel comfortable with. We don't see that on screen enough to then translate and apply in our real life.
I think my overall hope with the industry in general is showing more stories that reflect real life sexual interactions and intimate interactions, which oftentimes involve conversations that happen between people ahead of time.
Even when we talk about representation, there's still only so few images of queer folks who have sexual experiences. While it's super important that those are starting to be told, we are implicitly still saying, these are the stories we want to tell. There are infinite amount of realities for a young person that they're realizing that they can lead and live. I'm curious, just like, what drew you to like making your videos? Like, how are you coming up with content?
So I have grown up in a primarily white, cis area to where I would face like a lot of things and I really couldn't talk to anyone about those issues. And I used social media as an outlet, and TikTok was the perfect kind of platform for me. It was like minute-long videos where you could just speak your mind, say things.
Do you mind if I ask how you came out to your mom?
I actually posted a video of it on my TikTok.
My coming out story was not as cute as some of y'all's, let me tell you. So I go out to a cute dinner with my parents, and as I'm eating my meal, I look across, and there's this fine, ooh, what I tell you, was fine boy looking at me.
And I was like, little closeted me was like looking back, but I was like, no, I can't say anything.
He gets up, and he is walking over my direction. I almost choke on my food in my... He finally reaches me at my table, and he's like, hey, I saw you were really cute, and I just wanted to get your number really quick.
And like, I was torn. I was like, I can either come out right now or miss out on this beautiful man.
And guess what I did? I said, baby, here are the digits. He walks away after getting my number, and I'm like, oh no, oh God, what are my parents gonna say? I look at my mom, I look at my dad, they were like,
he was cute. I was like, oh, thank you, thank goodness.
I know for me, like, sex as an act was not something that I talked about with my parents. Sexuality and like gender, I think, were somehow separated. The way you're talking about your coming out was, or attractionality and sex, were those topics that you felt like you could talk about?
Honestly, I would have a lot of questions. I didn't really know where else to turn, because especially in school, there's not really a lot of gay sexual education. Like, I would always have these questions, and one day I was like, hey, Mom, this might be awkward. I have a couple questions for you. And she was like, oh, well, ooh, let me look it up. Cause she really didn't know. Like, this is all very new to me and her at the same time. And she did her own research, got some books for me. And we all kind of just had like a sit down talk about it.
What are ways in which you would like to use your platform to kind of encourage younger people too to think about sexuality and sex?
I get a lot of DMs daily on people that need help coming out or need help kind of finding that confidence, and I respond 100%. I want to help these people because, like, if you don't have that person in your life, I luckily was able to have that, so I would love to be able to give it to them.
Is your mom there by any chance?
Oh my gosh, my mom is upstairs, actually. Do you want me to go get her? Is she in here? Mom? Hey, beautiful. Okay.
Hi.
Oh, let's go on this side. This is the better lighting. Yes, the lighting is so much better. Ooh.
It's really nice to meet you, Michelle. I've been hearing really amazing things about the way you've parented, sir. And what advice would you give to other parents who maybe don't know where to start?
I feel like the first step is to really be okay with not knowing and being open enough to just kind of figure it out and make mistakes. You know, not everyone is going to be as open to certain things as others. And so if you just, you know, give yourself that space to be able to be okay with failing but continuing to try and to grow and to show up and to be open.
Kind of just sharing my coming out story. I shared my first experience with people, and I just did that because I want it to be normalized. I want it to be normalized to talk about it, to share your story.
I think because we've talked about the ways in which first times appear and people can have more than one first time, it's hard to think of what advice I would give myself because there are also many firsts I haven't experienced. There's so many things that are natural. There are so many different realities. There are so many different stories that need to be represented. And we don't make enough space for interpretation. I like the idea of pushing back against first time to be inclusive because whatever our experience is, it's going to be valid. It's going to be real to us.